All right, man, peace. You know, brothers, in life, it's very important that we all remember not to neglect the people that are important, whether it be in our family life, our personal life, our business life. There's a reason why at major corporations they give out bonuses. It's not because they want to pay people more money, but it's because they understand that gestures make people want to work harder. They feel like they have more invested in the success of the overall collective, just based on those gestures of gratuity or what have you. Why am I bringing all this up? Because David Stern, the former NBA commissioner, who, by the way, is somebody who we should never neglect his impact when it comes to the importance of the NBA timeline, why the NBA is so prominent today. One of the main reasons is because of David Stern. He was able to become commissioner in 1984 and controvert many of the more derisive sentiments about the NBA, that being that it was a black man's league, also that all those black men in the NBA at the time were cokeheads. A lot of it was true. He was able to construct a publicity paradigm where you could exalt the individual while also getting fans enraptured by the team. That's why we have the fan construct in the NBA that we see now, where fans root for teams, but they also become enraptured or thoroughly engaged by players like Kyrie Irving, LeBron James, Steph Curry, so on and so forth. All that started in the mid-'80s with David Stern. He was a commissioner who decided to push the Magic versus Bird concept. He welcomed Michael Jordan into the league, while also putting limitations on the amount of individual publicity and promotion that Jordan would be allowed through his company Nike. David Stern signed off on promotional tactics like the Superstars videos of the late 80s, which pretty much were NBA mixtapes where you got to see highlight packages of Karl Malone, Charles Barkley, Isaiah Thomas, Dominique Wilkins, Michael Jordan, Larry Bird, Hakeem Olajuwon, Magic Johnson, all on one tape. This was all to help push the league. He came up with these things. But when he needed to, he also could be very tough to show you that he was the boss. He was known as a fierce negotiator when it came time to collectively bargain. Well, he decided that he's going to try to levy a shot at the NFL, which is very popular amongst the more prominent holders of power in the NBA, and claimed that if Colin Kaepernick were in the NBA, he would have made sure that Colin was playing already. And that gets back to my initial point, to always make sure that you show the people that you work with or that you care about that you understand what they bring to the table. Basically, what David Stern is trying to say is that the NFL thinks that they could just cast aside players and disregard players. And David Stern believes in the concept of tough love, meaning what? Slap you across the backside and then bring you back, because at the end of the day, we're all here to get this money. Do I agree with David Stern that Colin Kaepernick would still be back in the NBA were he an NBA player and decided to go against David Stern's wishes? No, not necessarily, but I understand why he's doing this. So anyway, they're going to talk about it and I'm going to chime in.
And you just heard it. According to former NBA Commissioner David Stern, Colin Kaepernick would still be playing if he played in the NBA.
Now that's some bullshit, because after his national anthem protest, David Stern basically ran Chris Jackson, aka Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf, out of the NBA. So the reason why David Stern is saying this is to try to compare and contrast the NBA with the NFL, and to try to push the normal Caucasian Jew Marxist liberal agenda of follow us because we're going to treat everybody equally. And at the end of the day, it's not really about equality. It's about what is your business paradigm. The business paradigm of the NBA is to slap their players on the backside and bring them back and treat them like children. The business paradigm of the NFL has always been, when we don't need you anymore, we're just going to cut bait with you because there's another you right around the corner. So neither enterprise really respects the so-called black man or his wishes. They just choose to go about it a different way.
Hey, Max?
Yep.
Do you agree with that?
I do agree with it. I think if the NBA, if the NFL were run like the NBA, if David Stern or Adam Silver were running the NFL, Kaepernick would be playing in the NFL. This does not mean that he handled everything perfectly.
Let me say this very quickly. The reason why Kaepernick has not been in the NFL is because he overrated himself. Kaepernick believed that if he declined the option to sign back with the 49ers, that another team would pick him up. So he did not understand the climate that he had created. He also lacked self-awareness and how much he thought he was going to be bringing to the table for another team.
Where the NBA didn't have certain rules that I didn't love. For example, mandatory participation in the anthem ceremony, right?
Yes, and they still have that rule.
But you have to understand, the NBA in the 70s and 80s, as David Stern pointed out, was not a mainstream league to the extent that it became under Stern's stewardship. Why? Because it was perceived by, for lack of a better term, Middle America, as a black league.
No, not by Middle America. It was perceived that way by everyone in the country as a black man's league. As a matter of fact, infamously, the New York Knickerbockers were known as the New York Niggerbockers back in the late 70s. That's a fact.
And that was perceived by a large portion of this country as something to be afraid of. And so what David Stern knew he was up against was an image issue where he had to show people that these are people just like you. It's okay. Don't be scared. There's a dress code when they come to press conferences. See, look, suits and ties, everyone. Is that okay? They stand.
That was one of the stances that David Stern took that I thought at the time when I was a younger person, I said to myself, why is he doing this? But now as I mature, you grasp that you have to make some of these guys grow up. Allen Iverson was a perpetual boy. And a lot of people might not like me saying that. When I say he was a perpetual boy, meaning no one ever forced him to become a grown man and understand the difference between how he depicted himself as a teenager as opposed to how he should depict himself as a mature grown man. And that has ramifications because how you depict yourself is going to determine how you conduct yourself. And as a grown man, he's supposed to be a leader. He's not supposed to be at press conferences with 4XL t-shirts on and things of that nature. So David Stern needed to do that because he saw where the NBA was going in the early 2000s. Trying to bring a lot of that thug energy, that quote unquote thug energy, which is really just gangster rap energy into the NBA. Because most of those guys were not criminals, they were not thugs, but they were trying to copy what they saw the quote unquote hip hop artists doing. So Stern did right to do that.
And for the anthem, and I think there was a lot of recognition around the league, the kind of biases that the league was up against. It was not simply because, hey, the players must jump when we say jump, and the Mahmoud Abdul Rauf situation, where formerly Chris Jackson refused to stand for the anthem. They worked, yes, at first he was suspended, but then they worked it out, and he still played in the league, and that's what David's...
Knock it off. It was only a matter of time before they ran him out of the NBA. Mahmoud Abdul Rauf was ran out of the NBA by David Stern. They just had to make it look decent. The same way that they ran Craig Hodges out of the NBA. So that's how they've always worked. The NBA has always been like that. And it's very similar to how the Caucasian liberals conduct themselves. They act as if they're a friend to the so-called black man, but as soon as you diverge from what they want you to think and what they want you to say, they're going to do the same things to you that the so-called quote-unquote conservative Caucasians are alleged to do to so-called black people, which is dismiss them, get rid of them.
Stern means, as far as I can tell, we would have figured something out.
Bullshit. David Stern has never figured anything out with so-called black men who did not want to get down with the company line. He's always ran them out.
I believe him, Stephen A.
You should believe him because he's telling the truth. Colin Kaepernick would have been playing in the NBA.
Allegedly.
But I think it's important to distinguish the difference between the Colin Kaepernick that protested and has been exiled from the NFL and the Colin Kaepernick that sued the NFL and has been exiled from the NFL. The Colin Kaepernick that protested, David Stern would have worked that out. I'm not so sure David Stern would have been that receptive to him being back in the league if he decided to sue the NBA. That is a different problem.
Of course he was not going to be receptive to Colin Kaepernick coming back into the NBA if he decided to sue the NBA. That was never going to happen because that's you fucking with the money. With the Caucasian Jew, you're not going to fuck with their money. And they're willing to work with you as long as you understand that you're a commodity for them. You know, it's like a prostitute that runs away from her pimp. Well, if the pimp finds you, he's going to be upset. He's going to get you back in line. He's going to throw you back out there on that strip. And that's just the fact of the matter. This notion that David Stern is some magnanimous individual who cares about the players and all that, I mean, just knock it off. He's going to say what he needs to say to make sure that your mind is right so that you can make him his money. And that's it. That's all it's about. And really, that's all it's supposed to be about because he's running an enterprise. He's not there to be a surrogate dad. But once again, this notion that David Stern would have made sure that Colin Kaepernick would have came back to the NBA to play, that's nonsense. Because according to Colin Kaepernick, he was protesting police brutality. That has not gone away. That's never going to go away as long as the black man is in captivity. That's never going to go away. So he would have been protesting for perpetuity. And if Colin Kaepernick comes back into the NFL, he's going to have to keep protesting based on his stance, because his stance was that he was protesting police brutality. Police brutality is not going away. It will never go away. Because anytime many of these easily triggered pro-blackity blacks see an image of a black man getting hit by a police officer on camera, they're going to assume that it's police brutality. Even though you can see a lot of the same footage with police on Caucasians, police on people of other races. Of course, with the so-called black man, our issues are more pronounced because this is not our rest. This is not our kingdom. We have to get our own kingdom. But the pro-blackity blacks, their minds are so perverted. They're obsessed with this perpetual argument with the white man as opposed to us trying to get our own. But that's a whole other topic. That's a whole other video. The point being is this. David Stern would not have and should not have been able to control anybody with the alleged sentiments that Colin Kaepernick had. So he would have had to run him out the league the same way he did Craig Hodges and the same way that he did Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf. That's the bottom line. So he's a hypocrite.
And that is what I think that we have to pay attention to. When we're talking about Colin Kaepernick, one of the things that rakes my last nerve, people so often get into how things should be. And I appreciate that. But I'm not going to lie to y'all. I'm a black man.
No shit.
And I'm thinking about the way things are. And when I talk about looking out for my people, I like to crystallize for us what the obstacles are so you know what they are and you operate accordingly. If you are Colin Kaepernick, I ain't going to bring up the fact that you were 1-10 as a starter in your last season. I'm not going to bring up the fact that you're 3-16 over your last 19 starts as an NFL player, and that could be justification in the eyes of some owners as to why it's not a priority for us to give you a job.
Well, Stephen A. Smith, don't bring that up, because all we've been inundated with is that Colin Kaepernick has 16 touchdowns and 4 interceptions. They don't talk about his win-loss record because that's not good for the narrative. The narrative is that Colin Kaepernick is as good as, or was as good as, Tom Brady combined with Aaron Rodgers, and they ran him out of the NFL for no good reason whatsoever.
Because I know you're being ostracized. I know that you're being blackballed, so I'm not going to use that as an excuse.
You know, this whole collusion and blackball nonsense, of course, if we go by the legal aspect, it's very obvious that the NFL colluded, or the owners got together, whether it was a tacit agreement or an overt agreement that they're not going to sign Colin Kaepernick, or sometimes it's just that they realize that they're not fucking with you. It's like a group of guys. If you have a group of guys, say in a high school, and there's a reputation that a certain female has, even if she's beautiful and she got a fat ass and all that other stuff, if she has a certain reputation, a group of dudes might say amongst each other, you know, I'm not fucking with her because I heard that she's crazy. Does she have the right to say to them, oh, you guys are wrong for not fucking with me? They have the option to not want to mess with her if they know that she's more trouble than she's worth. That doesn't mean that she does not bring certain things to the table that might be good, but you decide that you don't want to deal with that. If the NFL owners say to themselves, we don't want to deal with Kaepernick because he's not good enough to offset a lot of the nonsense that he's going to bring, who's anybody to say that they're wrong about that?
But what I am saying is this. If you are Colin Kaepernick, everybody's out there quick to talk about sticking out your chest and fight the good fight and blah, blah, blah.
Well, you know, that's what these so-called wokey wokes are best at. They're best at being cheerleaders. The internet revolutionaries, they love trying to put batteries in people's back. Even though they have no plan, they have no knowledge, they have no wisdom, they have no intellect. They just talk shit all damn day. That's all they're about. When it's really time to assess things and figure out what the real problems are and how we can solve them as individuals, because you don't have to be wealthy, you don't have to be famous, you don't have to be a celebrity to be a part of the solution. It starts with each and every single one of us and how we live our daily lives. That's how things are going to get better. It's not going to be because of Floyd Mayweather or Michael Jordan or Kobe Bryant or LeBron James or Colin Kaepernick. They're not going to have anything to do with any real solution. But the so-called black men, I notice, and when I say the so-called black men, I'm not talking about all brothers, I'm talking about the liberal black men. They need somebody to point to and say, that's our leader. You know why they need that? So that when the plan doesn't work, they can point to that same guy and say, he betrayed us. And they never have to look at themselves.
All right, that's cool. But you know what's coming down the pipe, don't you? Because there's a system in place that says, excuse me, We ain't gonna let you elevate but so far. We ain't gonna let you flex but so much. And if you do that, we're gonna make sure to use you as an example for a price to pay. Eric Reed got a job right here in Carolina. Nobody said that. Nobody said anything about that. They didn't mind.
Of course, because they have that plant owner with the Carolina Panthers, Tepper. And I told you guys, whoever they brought in to be the owner of the Carolina Panthers was going to be the plug, and he was going to be the avenue through which all the woke athletes in the NFL could come play for him. And I guarantee you he's going to try to bring Kaepernick onto that team.
They didn't mind this brother getting a job. Why not? Because they understood that in the grand scheme of things, you've got 70% or more of black players in the National Football League. That's like, damn, that this man deserves a job just like Colin Kaepernick deserves a job. But you could make an example of Colin Kaepernick, not only because he was considered the instigator and the provocateur, but also somebody who had the temerity to sue you. And
on top of that, Colin Kaepernick plays quarterback, which is a position of leadership. Why would you want a leader or a pseudo-leader who's not going to bring any elements of leadership into your locker room? He's just not worth it.
That is going on. It's just important.
And I'm sure that many pro-blackity blacks are going to get very upset by what I'm saying. I really don't give a shit. I've been saying the same thing for 2 years now. To me, it's plain as day what Colin Kaepernick is. He's a provocateur. I've always said that he's a monarch athlete. He's being manipulated and being handled by his girlfriend, Ness Nitty, and whatever sponsors are in the background. We know about Nike. I'm sure that Black Lives Matter is involved. Kaepernick is a proverbial golem, meaning what? He's just a pawn and a puppet. Somebody who's under mind control, who's being used to try to fracture the NFL. To a degree he failed, but to a degree he has succeeded. But I'll be covering that in another video.
Important for us as communities in this nation to recognize no matter how wrong they are, and Max and myself and so many others are going to speak adamantly and emphatically against it. The system that is out there is always going to reach a point where they're going to make sure that you pay a price to set an example because of fear that followers are going to come from the background to come up to the forefront just to make sure. They want to neutralize those people. That's what this is about. So
no, it's not really about that, Stephen A. Smith. I mean, to a degree, they want to make sure that they don't have any holes in their dam. Any leaks they want to plug up because they are running a business. But at the end of the day, as we all know, Colin Kaepernick had no plan. He never had a plan. People respect you when you have a plan, even if they disagree with your cause. If you can provide rationale and a point-by-point understanding of your thought process and what you want the culmination to be, then at the very least, they can nod their head and say good luck. But when there's no solution-oriented thinking, nobody's going to respect you. And that's the reason why Colin Kaepernick has been silent, because he's more valuable as a symbol and as an image than an actual leader, because he has no leadership abilities. He has none. He's not a leader. Never has been, never will be.
So David Stern is making a point, and he's telling the truth as it pertains to the protest.
No, what he's telling is what he wants to be the truth, or what he wants people to consider to be the truth, is actually just a sentiment to promote the liberal aspect of the NBA. See, if he were here with us, we would have worked this out, and we would have respected his wishes. David Stern has never respected the wishes of anybody. This was the commissioner for what, 30 years, who knew about Donald Sterling and his racist practices and said nothing. You know why? Because Donald Sterling was a fellow Caucasian Jew. And there was no way in the world that he was going to out Donald Sterling. So when David Stern left and Adam Silver came in, I believe Donald Sterling probably told David Stern and Adam Silver, look, I'm about done being an owner. I'm ready to go. So they just concocted this harebrained scheme to bring about a way to amplify the value of the Clippers. It was also a ritual. I've already gone over this. Donald Sterling, Adam Silver, Sterling Silver. Once Donald Sterling sells the team, he sells it for $2 billion, about 10 times more than what he bought it for, if not more. And as a matter of fact, I think it was 100 times more, because I believe that he brought the Clippers for $20 million and sold them for $2 billion. So I don't understand how Donald Sterling lost out in that whole situation. He doesn't care if people know how he feels about so-called black people. That's been widely known. Certain people might say, well, if that's the case, if what you're saying is true, why wouldn't Donald Sterling just sell the team? Why would he have to go through that whole practice or that whole narrative of the racist comments to the transgender concubine. The reason why that was necessary was because that was a way to ingratiate Adam Silver with the black players immediately. Adam Silver swooped in and acted like the hero, the super liberal Caucasian Jew hero, and said, Donald Sterling, get the hell out of our league. They made it look good for the cameras and for the media and for the simpleton Negroes out there that want that hug. And they all looked at Adam Silver and said, oh, wow, he's a really good guy. And they still believe that shit to this day. And Adam Silver knew that once he built up that equity with the players, with the simple-minded players in the NBA, and all these social justice warriors and the internet revolutionaries that happen to be so-called black, now he can come with the, hey, let's promote homosexuality through the NBA. Let's promote feminism. Let's promote lesbianism. Let's promote having women coaches in the NBA when there are black men who still can't get jobs in the NBA. Let's promote transgenderism in the NBA. Let's do all that, and they'll all walk in lockstep and say, yeah, we'll do that for you because you got rid of Donald Sterling for us. So that was the point of that whole ritual.
But if Colin Kaepernick had sued the NBA, I'm just not so sure we'd be able to say the same.
Look, this is race is inescapable in all of
Absolutely.
this, obviously. And there's an interesting series of books that one of my daughters reads called Who is Abraham Lincoln? Who is, and there's who is Rosa Parks.
Yeah.
And,
we know who Rosa Parks was. She was a Marxist, a lesbian, allegedly, who also was married to a white man, who they decided to use as the person to promote the bus boycott, even though she was not the person who originally chose to keep her seat on the bus. She's just the person that they tried to use as a symbol because she was a plant. Okay, Rosa Parks was a Marxist along with Martin Luther King and Bayard Rustin, Ralph Abernathy, and all of them. Anytime that you see these so-called affluent civil rights leaders who happen to be so-called black, number one, they're pansexual. Number two, they're Marxists. Okay? So Rosa Parks, she was previously married to a Caucasian man, and she also was known for being a quote-unquote lesbian, allegedly.
Once upon a time, you could have made the argument, hey, you have to understand. If you insist on, and I understand.
And of course, the original young lady who did not want to give up her seat on the bus was a young black girl by the name of Claudette Colvin.
I understand there's not exactly a moral equivalency, but as an example, if you sit down, there's going to be trouble, right? The Montgomery bus company driver says, make it light on yourself, right? And I never buy that argument. Make it light on yourself. You got to do what's right, and you have to stand up for yourself. And eventually there was a boycott as a result of that behavior, and eventually the laws changed, right? And things got better. And I would say that Colin Kaepernick did right by not making it light on himself, right? Eric Reed, yes, he eventually got a job. Why do you have to miss a season? He's a good safety. There was no good reason that he wasn't employed by an NFL team.
Hey, Max Kellerman, I have news for you. You could be a great broadcaster, but if you have a heroin addiction, then they're not going to let you just broadcast. You coming on air 90 pounds with bloodshot eyes, so on and so forth. And you can still be a great broadcaster. You could be on there with the cold sweats, still breaking down boxing and basketball. It's not going to happen. The actor Robert Downey Jr., one of my favorites, extremely talented. He went through a long period where he was just way out there with the drugs. And he had a difficult time getting roles in Hollywood. I guess he was not providing enough fellatio or giving up enough butt cheeks to offset the drug usage. Either way, he had a problem getting jobs. It's all about what you're going to bring to the table as opposed to the problems that you're going to potentially bring. That's always been the case. So this notion of not being able to understand how Eric Reed or Colin Kaepernick could get signed immediately like nothing was going on, it's just silly.
And Colin Kaepernick, I did not at first say, this is what I eventually said it was, because I'm like, hold up, maybe he's waiting for a starting job. And Colin, you might be a backup at this point. You're kind of a bubble starter.
That's exactly what he is.
But at a certain point, he's not one of 64 quarterbacks in the league.
Right.
That is
Right, but if Colin Kaepernick is not going to make a difference for your franchise, what's the point of bringing him on? Especially if he's going to be delusional enough to think that he should be paid like a starter. Why bring him on?
It's nonsense.
Well, getting back to
so of course go and sue if you think you're being colluded against.
Getting back to the whole David Stern element, where you can ultimately come to his defense as well. Oscar Robertson, Bob Lanier, Buck Williams, Connie Hawkins, Spencer Haywood, all at one point in time or another throughout NBA history, have gone at the NBA and still has an association with the NBA. So we have to give the NBA credit for that. And then you've got...
Right, but when they did that, David Stern was not the commissioner. That's the point. Does Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf still have an association with the NBA? No.
Stern, along with Adam Silver, his successor, who I can never, ever applaud enough for when they went up on Capitol Hill in defense of the players with the whole steroids era and beyond, and they went up on Capitol Hill and spoke on behalf of their product, their brand, and NBA players who are 80% plus African American, and reminded them of what value they have to our society as a whole that transcends the world of sports. So they deserve, David Stern was right to make that statement, and I applaud it. And I hope the NFL is...
Well, the so-called black man has great value. Of course, he's irreplaceable. So-called black man is like fine gold. He just has to understand that about himself. And that's a major problem. Because in this society, all they promote is the young black girls and the black woman. Why is that? It's not because black women are of no value. Black women are extremely precious as well. But this society only promotes the black woman so that they can foster the sense of competition between the black woman and the black man. Because they know, the powers that be know, that when you put the woman over the man, that race, whatever it is that has the woman over the men, is not a threat at all, because the woman will never start a revolution at all. The woman is comfortable in her environment. That's what she is. So the black woman is being used as a pawn against the black man. So it's very important for so-called black men to understand their value. And in order for you to truly develop that understanding, you're probably going to have to spend some time by yourself for a while and get all that toxicity from your childhood out of you, because a lot of so-called black men are raised in matriarchal environments, and they're constantly being marginalized and diminished and demeaned and told what they can't do. Unfortunately, there are a lot of households like that. And of course, there are also a lot of great mothers who teach their sons that they're of great value. But in general, we have an issue with black matriarchy that has to be overcome.
Fellas listening, because they could learn thing or two from the former commissioner and the present commissioner, who, by the way, they were interested in becoming commissioner to succeed Roger Goodell, if you listen to the reports about...
Allegedly. Sounds like more nonsense, though.
About Adam Silver.
One real quick thing. Donald Sterling so deeply offended players when he was caught on tape, right? Saying what he said.
Yeah.
That, and I was cynical about this. They'll give him a $10 million fine. He's super rich. So that. And Adam Silver came out and said, these players are our business partners. You have irreparably offended them. You're out of here. That showed me the way the NBA operates.
And by the
That's
way,
why the NFL was interested.
No, the reason why the NBA did that, once again, that was a ploy to ingratiate Adam Silver with the NBA players. And it worked very well.
To Max's point, it's not just Adam Silver. LeBron James, CP3 worked behind the scenes along with a plethora of other players to foster that decision that was made about Donald Sterling.
Again,
Those
highlighting the point that they're
showed
business
up
partners.
and showed out and got him up out of there.
100%. By the way, congrats to Eric Reed. 3-year extension here in Carolina with the...
No disrespect to Stephen A. Smith, but Donald Sterling was not ousted because of no damn LeBron James and Chris Paul. Because believe me, if Adam Silver wanted Donald Sterling to remain owner, he would have just taken LeBron James and Chris Paul aside and came up with a narrative to help them understand why that was not going to happen. Adam Silver is the person who wanted Donald Sterling gone, quote unquote wanted him gone, because that had already been worked out. That was very clearly a fake narrative to try to boost up the esteem that the players had for Adam Silver. But anyway, point being is this, brothers, always be alert and aware of what's going on around you. There's a lot of trickery and a lot of three-card Monte tactics that are being used to make so-called black men believe that they have certain friends in various places that are really not your friends. They really just want to see what they can get from you and how they can use you to maximize their own earning potential. That's all it's about when it comes to David Stern or Roger Goodell or Adam Silver or whoever. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just that we have to see what our value is so that we can make the most money off of our own talents as opposed to how much money they can make. So peace.